This movie covers how to manipulate the spacing between letters in your words using the letter spacing property. In typography, the spacing of characters is referred to with the professional name of kerning. CSS has enabled web designers to emulate the tight text control you get with print technology with this letter spacing property, whereas line height creates extra white space between lines of text. Letter spacing is used to adjust the spacing between characters in your words. Normal values can be declared to override inherited letter spacing, but mostly you'll want to declare letter spacing in pixels. Here I have two examples. I have a very wide letter spacing for my title. That's an H2 tag. And if we look at the embedded style up here, notice that the letter spacing is set to 33 pixels. Let's go ahead and make this even wider at 53 pixels. You can see that this will stretch the spacing between those letters. My paragraph tag here has some inherited letter spacing from the body tag. Up here I have a body declaration and the letter spacing is 3 pixels. Now rather than using the pixel measurement, if you use the M measurement, this will ensure that the spacing scales if the text sizes are increased. For example, notice that if I increase my text size, actually referred to as font size, from 12 to 32 for my paragraph, the letter spacing will not scale with the text sizes unless I add a letter spacing of 3 M's. This is a good example of the advantages of using the M measurement. This will adjust my letter spacing and keep adjusting it if I decide later to change my font sizes back down to 12. Keeps the letter spacing relative to the font size. It's also worth noting that unlike line height, here negative values are allowed. So something like letter spacing of negative 0.5 M's can be used to bunch up the characters if required. Let's go ahead and demonstrate this by making this a negative 3 M's. And I didn't see much bunching up. Let's change that to negative 3 pixels, and then you'll see a dramatic change of the legibility here. That's pretty tight text bunching there. There we go. I needed to add an extra space between the number and the px value, so you can see that that really bunches up my text. Obviously I wouldn't want to use that much bunching up, but let's say I wanted to tighten things up just a little bit, putting a negative 0.5 M might give me the effect that I'm looking for. Using negative letter spacing usually impairs legibility, however, so use this negative spacing with caution. In fact, use letter spacing only when absolutely necessary. Increasing the white space between characters rarely makes the text more legible. I usually use letter spacing for titles and larger headings like this lorem ipsum here when I want to spread out, maybe for a visual effect, but that's actually quite difficult to read. I added the letter spacing of 34 there, actually 53 pixels, just to drive home the effect. But something like 23 pixel letter spacing for this heading actually makes this much more readable. Now additional properties can be used for even more text control, so I cover some of these properties such as font weight, font variant, text transform, and indent in the next movie.